Hello and welcome to the special edition of Quantum Miracles Mastery Heal. How to create miracles today so you can heal anything. I'm your host, Melissa Binkley. I'm a spiritual advisor and healer, best-selling author and founder of the Intuitive Intelligence Academy. I love debunking belief systems that have us all trapped and exploring paradigms that disrupt. I believe in magic and miracles and believe together we can create a conscious revolution. On today's episode of Quantum Miracles Mastery, we have Val Silidker sharing Becoming Whole, Reclaiming Yourself, Healing Our World. Val is the founder and director of the Psychospiritual Institute. She's a board certified mindset and leadership coach and coach trainer and has been coaching individuals and facilitating groups for over 20 years, specializing in the transpersonal psychology of psychosynthesis, as well as ecotherapy, leadership skills, and holistic business. Val is also a deep ecologist, an international speaker, and author of Call of the Ecological Self. She's been featured multiple times on Hay House Radio, NBC, and USA Today, as well as numerous publications. She works with emerging leaders and mission-driven entrepreneurs who feel the shift in our world and want to be catalysts for change. And she supports people to deepen their self-awareness and develop personal and global leadership skills so that they can confidently achieve their potential and inspire the world through their unique gifts. Welcome, Val.
Melissa, thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy that you're doing this again. Our world
I
needs
am so happy to have you back again. I think your
Mhm.
talk last year on our first annual was one of the most well received of all of them. We had more comments and more people coming back and saying things about our conversation that I'm super excited to take it to the next level and talk about healing today and ways that we can work together to heal ourselves and heal the world. So what is your definition of healing?
Oh my goodness. For me, the word healing and the word wholeness really go hand in hand. It's for me, it's about coming back home to who we are and recognizing from the deepest space and the deepest context of ourself, how we become fully who we are. Because I think in that process, we can hold anything. Like it's almost like healing has already happened, when
Mm,
we reconnect to ourselves in that deepest level. So healing and wholeness.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
how I see it.
Yeah, and it's fascinating that we have to come to this place of healing. Like we're looking at the way that the world is right now, the things that are happening that we're saying everything needs to be healed. We're looking at a new era, and I don't believe anything is broken, right? I believe that at the core that we are all already whole, but it's like letting go of the parts of us that don't believe that, the parts of us that aren't experiencing that, and letting the experiences that are showing up in our world right now to kind of shift and say, how do we bring wholeness to every experience that we have? How do we bring that light in and that experience together?
Absolutely, 100%. People will sometimes say, like, what do you do? We always get that question. And it's like at the core, I mean, the form might change, but the essence is always the same. And for me, it's about helping us to remember who we are in
Mm,
the deepest level of our being. Because everything you just said is so deeply resonant, right? When we can remember who we are, we see ourselves whole, not just as an individual, but also as a collective, not just as humanity, but also as an ecosystem, a larger ecological self. So all of this becomes part of the way that we begin to move forward whole,
mm.
right? Which contributes to that healing. So yeah, absolutely.
And one of the ways that you share that with people in the Psychospiritual Institute is through this work of psychosynthesis. So, what is psychosynthesis?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily a household name yet, is it?
Oh, not at all.
Although it's been around for a really long time. Psychosynthesis is really the, I would say, one of the most highly developed spiritual or transpersonal psychologies that we have in the world. And it was developed over 100 years ago by a psychiatrist named Dr. Roberto Assagioli. And he was a contemporary of Freud and Jung. And he felt like what was missing from psychotherapy at that time. Psychotherapy was so focused in the basement of the psyche, and just really looking at the human psyche. And it was so limiting in that way. And he said, there's more to who we are as humans. Yes, we are the psyche. Yes, we are. Psychology is a big part of who and what we are. And we are so much more than that.
Mm,
And we are humans, and we are also this mystery. We are also these souls. We are also part of a greater whole. And so, just as psychoanalysis, what refers to the analysis of the psyche, psychosynthesis really looks at bringing together the various components of the psyche, these fragmented parts of ourselves into a more integrated and unified whole, so that we develop deep self-awareness and that we're able to respond creatively and effectively, to the psychological and the spiritual needs of our world right now. And so it really brings together both the psychology and science and the spirituality toward a sense of maturity. It blends those two together, and it offers skills and techniques that allows us to tap into the dimensions of our spiritual selves, the dimensions of our psychological selves, and learning how to become more whole within ourselves. So we teach this methodology, we teach this whole methodology to our students of how to become more whole, how to feel that sense of healing through wholeness, and how to also do that for the world. And so I think, sometimes we look at psychosynthesis as a psychology of wholeness, or sometimes it's referred to as the science of the soul. And the whole goal of psychosynthesis is to release the energies of the soul through our personality, so that who we are as this highest sense of self becomes how we live into the world. So it's this really beautiful integrative process that creates a deep alignment with self and personality.
Wow, beautiful. And so what is, for someone that's interested in, what types of challenges or what types of things does psychosynthesis work really well for?
Yeah. There's a lot of parts to what psychosynthesis addresses. And I think at the heart of it, Einstein said that we can't solve the world's problems with the same thinking that developed the problems in the first place, right? So we tend to apply this quote to our overall world, but it's also true for ourselves. Many of us feel so disconnected from who we are. We don't really know what we don't know about ourselves. So we tend to operate from an unconscious belief system, many times, that create patterns of thoughts or patterns of behavior that are not aligned with who we truly are or what we deeply want in the world, for ourselves or for the world. I mean, how many times have we acted or reacted to something that's come up and something that's happened, and then we're like, whoa, wait a minute, that is not what I meant to do. That's not who I am. Who was that? Right? Yeah. That comes up for all of us sometimes, right? And it's because it's not fully us in those moments, right? At those times don't feel like us because it's only a part of us, a part of us that's afraid, a part of us that in some way is trying to protect us, that's been wounded in some way. And we get caught up trying to fix the symptoms without realizing that there's this part of us that's holding a distorted belief about who we are as a self and what the world is really all about, that's actually causing the problem or the pattern that feels limiting. So we can't get ourselves out of it easily because we're overly identified with these wounded parts of us. And so we're trying to operate from that same point of view, right? Which brings us back to that quote. We're trying to resolve something by taking a breath versus really understanding how we're identifying ourselves and getting to the core root of the problem. So we may not even, fully know who we are a lot of times beyond the layers of conditioning, because there's so much that we're up against, right? Society, our family, our culture, this decontextualized trauma from our past that is still present for us in our current moment, and it could be from our personal experiences, but it could also be intergenerational trauma that came through our families. That's now part of who we become in the world or who we think we are in the world. So we need to learn how to make the unconscious conscious, to begin to work with these parts of us, these wounded parts of us that we overly identify with, so much so that we think that that's who we are. We believe that we're our wounds, right? We believe that we're these roles that we play. We believe that we're these identities that we've taken on, and we become so attached that these parts of us literally begin to hijack our sense of self. And not only that, but when we're operating from that limited part of us or that limited worldview, we're now also making decisions from our wounded places, from our fear, rather than choosing from our hearts, rather than choosing from who we deeply truly are or what we deeply truly want. So when we make the unconscious conscious, we get an opportunity to reclaim ourselves. Right? And this changes everything. Now we get to live and choose not from our wounds, but from a clear, empowered vision of self.
I'm not in habit. I'm not automatic. I'm not sitting there just doing something because that's the way that that it's been programmed in my wounded self. I've done as we all know, we all have done so much work on ourselves. I had done a lot of work on myself, but I recognized it was just a year ago where I had a wounded part of myself that showed up in such an amazing way that I did something that I hadn't done in 20 years. And I mean, and for those that know my story, 20 years ago, I was an international drug trafficker and had a really crazy life. I was doing some crazy things. But this part of me that I thought I had healed showed up last year. And I did something in a weekend that I walked out of that weekend and I was like, I cannot believe I just treated this person this way and did this. I had this anger and this madness. I felt like I was going crazy. Like I had been triggered so bad that I was awful. And I walked out of it and I was like, wow, you got some more stuff to do, right? Like, and I believe we always do, but it was something that was so triggering that it literally threw me back to a person that I thought I had left behind. And that's that wounded part, right? There's just pieces of us that are in there that we have to love and bring to the light and be like, oh, well, here, but it was beautiful, I think. And I think this is part of it is like when we learn and say, okay, oh, there is this piece of me now that I know that it's here, unconscious to conscious, where, as you were saying, it brought it to my consciousness that I could go do that work and say, oh, I have to really figure out what this is, because this is something that's obviously not healed, that I've just been covering up thinking it was healed. And since then, for me, it showed up in some physical issues. Like a couple months later, I started having a physical issue because I hadn't cleared that yet. So I find it very fascinating that that this stuff can really affect us emotionally, mentally, spiritually, on all levels, physically.
100%. And that's such a perfect example. It's like, it's always a process, right? And so the kind of tools that we acquire throughout our lives and the deepening of our understanding of self and our ability to see and be with ourselves is what allows us to move through these moments when we're thrown off for a second and those old automated behaviors and patterns want to step in. We can go, wait a minute, like, I know you, and I can really begin to work with these parts. And, and you're speaking right to it, Melissa, because the thing is, we need to slow down. We move so fast in life that we don't often take time to really sit with ourselves and just to be with what's here. So we need to take that deeper look and see, like, where am I getting triggered? Like you just got triggered that weekend. What are the patterns that are coming? Like when this happens, I react like this, right? So we start to move into a space of deep inquiry, and really look at our unexamined assumptions about who we think we are, what's really true for us, and what are those things that trigger us. So all of it begins with self-awareness. It begins with developing a deeper sense of who we are and taking a deeper look. Who am I? Who am I? Right? What do I deeply want? What am I here for? How do I contribute to the world? Like these questions sit in the center of the heart of all of us. We don't often take times to really ask them, but they are so important and they are right here, always wanting our attention because we want to know ourselves. So to do this, we want to become an observer of our inner world. This is really the key because we're identified all over the place. And sometimes there are roles that serve us like a leader or a good mother. But if I show up as a good mother to my husband, I'm going to drive him nuts. I start to work in a team effort and I step in like this leader and director and I'm bossing everyone around. I'm taking that part of me too far. So, these parts of us, we refer to as subpersonalities. And sometimes they can serve us if we step into them consciously. Oftentimes they can hold us back and sabotage us. All the time they're limiting, because they're only a part of the story. So when we begin to become the observer of our inner world and we develop our inner observation skills, we can now create a distance between who we are as this kind of center point, the self, and the contents of our consciousness. So we can become aware of the contents of our consciousness without becoming overly identified with these parts of us, right? So instead, knowing that who we are is a center of pure self-awareness and will. Unstoried, contentless, right? Without content. The content then starts to become the parts of our personality that we can become attached to. It doesn't mean we don't have experiences or we don't have a personality, but we want to become that director of our lives. We want to become, we want to be able to observe and direct the energies of our soul, right? So from this space, I can see these parts of myself. I can see the hurt parts, right? I can see and be with the emotions that can feel too hard to hold. right? I can experience my emotions. Maybe I just experienced the loss of a loved one and I'm moving into some deep grief. Well, I can experience that grief, but not so much that it paralyzes me, because who I am is also more than that grief. So I have the experience of the grief, and I can also see myself having that experience, and like a parent to a child, wrap my arms around that part of me and really begin to love that part of me and experience that part of me, right? I can be with it. I can be with my pain, my discomfort, my confusion, my numbness, right? I can unconditionally love and accept myself exactly as I am, as this loving observer, as this deeper self. Because when we're able to do that, we're able to bring presence into every moment and every experience of our lives. And this is such a deep part of healing, is being able to be with what is, and turning toward our experience, and know that every experience we have is part of our path. There's no such thing as being pulled off your path. Like, everywhere we go and everything we do is part of our experience. Every experience is teaching us, shaping us, giving us information about who we are and how we can become more fully ourselves, right? How we can reconnect with ourselves in this way. And when we do that, we unblock the feedback loops, because every experience we have, especially the most intense emotions that we experience, is feedback, asking for our attention, asking for our love, asking to understand it. And when we ignore it, or we numb out, or we push it away, we do not allow ourselves to receive the feedback that is needed for our growth, or to accelerate our growth and our personal evolution, right? So we continue operating from the same mindset and the limiting patterns, right? If we don't take a time to really look deep into this. So the work that we're talking about here is very much about the both having the experience and recognizing that who I am is so much more. So it's the opposite of spiritual bypassing.
Yes.
We don't want to transcend all this stuff. We want to go deeper into it, literally go into the experience. And so we can disrupt the patterns, right, that are creating suffering within our lives. So we want to make that the unconscious conscious. We want to deeply identify with what is going on here. Notice that there's a part of me. There is this part of me that has this belief. There is this part of me that believes I'm not lovable, that believes I'm not creative, that believes they don't want to hear what I have to say and I'm not unique, that believes, or there's this part of me that says I'm just depressed. That's who I am, right? There's a part of me that believes that. We want to recognize that so that we can begin to work with it. And then we move through a process we call disidentification. Disidentification is the key to freedom, because when we're able to disidentify from these parts of us that can feel paralyzing and hijack our sense of self, when we disidentify and we come back to that self, we self-identify and we recognize, now this part of me, we have absolute freedom to move in and out of these parts of us, to utilize their strengths and energies, to hold them and integrate them. Ultimately, we don't want to get rid of any part of us, even that part of you that showed up that weekend, right? You want to be able to take that part of you and bring it into your understanding, your love, your heart, yourself, because it's a part of you. Right? So this is how we become whole.
And I love that, because it's very different, but similar to what we teach in our quantum healing. Is when we teach our signature formula, like you say, you have these parts of you that in the spiritual bypassing, or a lot of things are saying, well, like, just be high vibe, or just, or just always be happy, or just figure, like, don't have that feeling. And we say, no, that feeling is there. Love it. Bring it in. It's a part of who you are. It's a part of your signature, but use it, but transmute it and use it as fuel to heal. Use it as, say you have this part of you that's angry all the time. Anger is great fuel for passion. It can be great, right? So we transmute it into something that's powerful that you can use for healing, whether it's physically in your body, or mentally or emotionally. And so that the wholeness of who you are as a signature is all of those parts. And so I love that that's what you're saying with this psychospiritual, is that we're using these parts, and we're saying, like, I can observe this and say, this is a part of who I am, and how can I use that to benefit me, instead of using it as letting it run around rampant and control like a toddler and, and take over.
100%. And also to have gratitude for that, because like you're saying, our anger is our passion, a passion for justice, our passion for what's right. Our grief, we only grieve for what we love.
Yes.
When we experience grief, it's because we also love. And if we don't allow ourselves to grieve, we cut ourselves off from love. We don't allow ourselves to feel fear. We don't also tap into our courage to be with our fear and do it anyway. So every emotion that we experience gives us information. And when we follow it through by going deeper into that, and we don't make it wrong, we grow so profoundly. The other day I was reflecting on this. Actually, I had this conversation with my husband, and I was saying, isn't it interesting? Language is such a powerful, it's a powerful, it can limit us, and it can help us communicate, but it can also severely limit us and
Mm.
train our minds into certain things. And I was thinking about how, like, we're brought up, especially in our culture, to, like, if somebody's not feeling happy, we immediately say, hey, what's wrong? Like, there's something wrong with feeling sad.
Yeah.
There's something wrong with being upset. What's wrong? Why aren't you happy? What's wrong? And immediately just attaching that word wrong in our inquiry makes it like it's wrong to feel this.
Yeah.
It's like, I just want to say, hey, what are you experiencing? Sadness. Wow. What does that feel like right now? What's happening in that space? Just coming into it with curiosity and the ability to be present with this deep inquiry completely can transform our relationship to what's happening in our inner world. That is healing. We're immediately healed when we recognize that there's nothing wrong with what we're feeling. There's nothing wrong. There's no bad emotion. There's just emotions, and all of it serves us in some way. I'm thinking about this quote from Pema Chodron. And she says, with meditation, we begin to realize that we're standing in the middle of a sacred circle. That is your whole life. And whatever comes up into that space is there to teach you. And our life's work is to use what we've been given to let the things that enter into our circle wake us up rather than put us to sleep. To wake us up. So how does everything that we feel, right, allow us to wake up more deeply into who we are?
Yeah. And if we put the saying that there's something wrong with that, or into that equation, then we're not allowing ourselves to have that expansive growth of the lessons and the experiences. I agree. I can remember years ago, and it just honestly just had an aha when you just said this, was I one of my ex partners would always ask me every day, "What's wrong?" And I got to a point where it just upset me, because I was like, nothing's wrong. Like, I'm like, no, it's just, I'm not smiling. Like, or, I'm one of those people, I'm very contemplative, and and I'll sit in a room and I'll just watch things. And so maybe my face, I have, I guess they call it the resting whatever face. Like, I don't look like I'm happy, but I'm super happy on the inside. And people be like, what's wrong? And I'm like, nothing's wrong. Like, life is so good. And I love that you said that power of those words, and how we use those words, and they can create experiences for people. And instead of like, really, we've been conditioned by society, I think, to feel that something is wrong, or to always be asking because we're not sure of our grounds, or things like that. Or I think that what's wrong, no, I've noticed, even comes from somebody else's insecurity, because they don't feel comfortable around my comfortability, right, or someone else's
Which
experience.
is totally understandable
Yeah.
with the way that our society sets us up for happy, happy, happy. If you're not happy, take this pill. If you're not happy, buy this thing. Oh, you're not good enough. Therefore, in order to be good enough, you need to have this thing and this much money and this much, right? That's like the secret to the advertising industry, right? Billions of dollars go into the psychology of making you feel unworthy and unhappy so they can sell you happiness, when it's always right here, because
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong. There's just information. And so, as we lean into this and we start to understand this more and more, we begin to we really connect more deeply to who we are, and our ability and our capacity to hold ourselves in any situation. That is empowerment. That is the ability to feel so incredibly free and powerful, and be able to direct our lives and be with what's here in every single way. Because what happens is, when we move into suffering, when we are overly identified with these parts of us that are feeling these uncomfortable feelings, and we think that it's wrong, 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 we're not able to see clearly. We're not able to envision clearly. We're not able to choose clearly. So when we become overly identified, not only does our sense of self get hijacked, but our sense of will And our ability to make decisions also gets hijacked. Like we completely lose our ability to control our lives in that space. And that's why it's so important for us to come back into this space of awareness and will, right? Because it's not just knowing ourselves and being able to hold all these parts of us. It's also our ability to make decisions that feel deeply aligned with who we are in the world, you know, and recognize that every moment we can choose we can choose to accept the things that we can't change, right? We can choose to notice the things that we don't prefer and be grateful for that information, and then make new choices to move us in a new direction. It doesn't mean being okay with everything, like I'm just going to have to surrender to this, right? But it means like accepting what is in this moment, recognizing what you want to envision for the next step, then taking the next step maybe in a new direction. But as you do it, you don't do it from a space of suffering or overly identified with these parts, but you do it from a clear space, you know, that moves you forward, right? Because that's how we are able to make clear, powerful decisions, is by coming back into a space of acceptance, of connection, of compassion, of self-love, you know, and that is so incredibly important.
So how, once we get to this place where being the observer, we're able to bring ourselves back to this wholeness, and working on this as the self. How does this work? How does it contribute to the larger collective healing, to our world?
Yeah, you know, those of us who are most whole, most self-aware, get to lead our world forward. You know, that's the first thing that I want to say, is like when we are really clear about who we are and how we connect with life and what really matters and what we really value and what our sense of purpose is, we naturally contribute to a greater vision for life because it's who we are, right? There's an evolutionary movement that's happening inside of us. That's always happening. It happens without our awareness, right? We're always in a state of evolution. All living things contain within them a drive to evolve, to become the fullest realization of themselves. And when we bring our awareness to that process, we get to accelerate that process and cooperate with that natural movement toward evolution, personally and also collectively, right? Because we as individuals are not compartmentalized beings. We are interconnected and interdependent with the world. And when we realize this, right, and getting to know ourselves, we also get to know that at every moment we're part of a greater whole. You know, Thich Nhat Hanh, he talks about, he came up with the word interbeing, right? We can't just be by ourselves alone, right? To be is always to interbe, right? We're always interconnected with life. And so the theory and the practices that we're talking about, you know, work on every level of wholeness, right? How are we, for instance, overly identified in our politics in a way that can limit us? How are we overly identified in our culture or our race in ways that can feel limiting or create duality and suffering in our world? You know, it's really important, especially like this last year and a half, we have really seen this play out, like a tremendous amount of division, right?
Everything, like
everything feels compartmentalized.
Everything, yeah.
So can we recognize that we might have an identification, and who we are is also so much more than that, right? We are also part of a human race. That is another whole. So we're individuals, we have a family, we have a community, we have a race, it's the human race. And as humanity, we can become overly identified. What happens when we identify only as humans to this planet? We're watching that play out on an ecological level right now, where there's a sense of duality. There's humans and then there's nature, right? But we know that that's not true. So how do we also reconnect with our living planet and connect with our sense of an ecological self? So healing ourselves becomes the healing of our world. Because when we understand our levels of wholeness and how we're interconnected and part of larger and larger and larger levels of wholeness, our choices are not just about us. Yeah. They also become part of contributing to a greater good. How do my choices create a ripple effect into the world that either contribute to an accelerated evolutionary movement, or continue to contribute to a paradigm of separation that creates suffering in the world? Because when we're not aware, we can inadvertently, with all the well-meaning in the world, we can inadvertently contribute to more suffering when we're not aware of who we are and how we are interbeing with the world. So the more we become truly aware of ourselves, the more we begin to heal and whole, right? Not only ourselves, but our world. And that's why it's so important for us to do this inner work, because it's bigger than us.
It is bigger than us, and it's what the world needs right now. We need so much of this in this experience of what we've been, like you said, the last year and a half, and the division is across the board. It's not just about COVID and the pandemic, but it's politics, it's race, it's all of these different, nature, even, things with like industries. I watched a documentary recently about one of the industries, and I was like blown away at what we were doing to our planet, things like that, where we're not in that integrated wholeness. So you have a process, this psychosynthesis, but you have something you're going to share with everybody today so they can actually take them through, so we can kind of understand a little bit about this work on a deeper level, and get an experience of this beautiful work.
Yes, I do actually. I'd love to take everybody through a process that's what we call kind of the classic disidentification exercise. So it's going to give you an experience of disidentification,
Awesome.
all that we've been talking about. Okay, so let's go ahead, and everybody who's tuning in right now, if you're in a safe space, I invite you to just get comfortable and go ahead and either close your eyes or just soften your gaze, and bring your awareness into your inner world. And we'll just begin by connecting with the breath, taking a moment to breathe in and feel that breath filling your entire body, and then slowly exhaling. And just take another breath in, breathing in, and slowly, deeply exhaling. And one more time, breathing in and exhaling. And I invite you now to bring your awareness to your body. And just imagine my voice becoming your voice. I have a body, and I am more than my body. My body may find itself in different conditions of health or sickness. It may be rested or tired, but that has nothing to do with myself. I value my body as a precious instrument of experience and of action in the outer world, but it is only an instrument. I treat it well. I seek to keep it in good health, but it is not myself. I have a body, and I am more than my body. Just silently say that to yourself. I have a body, and I am more than my body. Just take a moment to breathe into that awareness. And now bring your awareness to your emotions. I have emotions, and I am more than my emotions. My emotions are diversified, changing, sometimes contradictory. They may swing from love to hatred, from calm to anger, from joy to sorrow. And yet my essence, my true nature does not change. I remain. Though a wave of anger may temporarily submerge me, I know that it will pass in time. Therefore, I am not this anger. Since I can observe and understand my emotions and then gradually learn to direct, utilize, and integrate them harmoniously, it is clear that they are not myself. I have emotions, and I am more than my emotions. Just silently repeat that. I have emotions, and I am more than my emotions. And again, take a moment to breathe into that understanding, that awareness. And now bring your awareness to your mind, to your thoughts. I have a mind, and I am more than my mind. My mind is a valuable tool of discovery and expression, but it is not the essence of my being. Its contents are constantly changing as it embraces new ideas, knowledge, and experience. Sometimes it refuses to obey me. Therefore, it cannot be me, myself. It is an organ of knowledge in regard to both the outer and inner worlds, but it is not myself. I have a mind, and I am more than my mind. Repeating, I have a mind, and I am more than my mind. Breathing into that. So, what am I then? What remains after having disidentified from my body, my feelings, my mind? It is the essence of myself, a center of pure self-consciousness. It is a permanent factor in the ever-varying flow of my personal life. It is that which gives me a sense of being, of permanence, of inner balance. I recognize and affirm myself as a center of pure self-consciousness, of creative, dynamic energy. I realize that from this center of true identity, I can learn to observe, direct, and harmonize all of the psychological processes and the physical body. I choose to achieve a constant awareness of this fact in the midst of everyday life and to use it to help me and give increasing meaning and direction to my life. I recognize and affirm I am the center of pure self-consciousness, awareness, and will, and silently repeat, I am the center of pure self-consciousness, awareness, and will. And take a moment now to breathe into the center of awareness, yourself as awareness, yourself as will. And as you tune into the center point of who you are, I want you to begin now to imagine and feel into the sensation within you of 1 hour. What does 1 hour feel like inside of you? And begin to expand that sensation into the feeling of a day. What is the sensation of one day? And now 1 week, feeling the sensation of 1 week within you. The expanding sensation of time as you feel into 1 month. What is the sensation of 1 month within you? One year. Breathing into the feeling of 1 year. And expanding that into 10 years. And now into 100 years. What is the sensation of a century within you? And now 1,000 years. And continue expanding into the sensation of eternity. Feel the sensation of eternity within you. Breathe into that sensation. And as you stay connected to the sensation of eternity, begin now to imagine a space within you, a spherical space a foot in diameter. And feel that now expanding into 10 feet. The sensation of 10 feet, expanding into 100 feet in every direction. And now feeling yourself expanding into a mile in every direction. Into 10 miles. To 100 miles. Breathing in as you feel yourself expanding into 1,000 miles in every direction. And continuing to expand into the sensation of infinity. And breathing into the sensation of infinity. And now holding yourself in this timeless space, endless time, endless space, into all the layers of who you are. Feeling yourself whole, healed, expanded, part of everything, and everything part of you. And from this space, very gently begin bringing your awareness now back to your breath. And very gradually, once again, to your body and your mind and your feelings, until you feel yourself grounding once again in this body, in this moment, still connected to the sensation of infinity, eternity, still aware that who you are is the center point of awareness and will, and your beautiful, differentiated self. And very gently begin to move your shoulders and your fingers, taking one full deep breath, and then exhale with a little sound. When you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. The power of disidentification, and recognizing this body as well as the endlessness of who we are.
Yeah. Wow, what a beautiful experience. Thank you so much for that. So if you love what we're sharing today about psychosynthesis with Val, please share this episode of Quantum Miracles Mastery with everyone that you love, because being disidentified and recognizing your greatness and your wholeness and you're part of all of infinity, and also bringing you back to this point to where you are so you can hold both those is so important for all of us in healing the collective right now. So please share this with everyone that you love, so that we together can create a conscious revolution. And so Val, you have a lovely gift for everyone today. Can you share about the ideal model so that everybody knows what they're getting?
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited to share this gift with all of you guys. This is a beautiful exercise that invites us to activate our imagination and our will in service to ourselves. And so it's going to move you through what we call false models, which are some of the ways that we show up in the world that are not fully who we are. So maybe the ways that we undervalue ourselves, or the way that we show up where we're trying to meet other people's expectations or ideas of who we're supposed to be, right? So it really helps us to take a look at the parts of us that are not fully us. And it takes you through an incredible artistic meditation, actually. So you're going to do some reflection, a little bit of art around this, and really understanding these false models And then it's going to move you into a really powerful process of identifying with who you are. And you're going to be creating the ideal model, which is a realistic model, not a secret daydream model that you can never attain, but a realistic model of who you are and who you're becoming, so that you can clearly activate the imagination and see yourself whole and healed and powerful, and begin to take steps of stepping into and embodying yourself fully. So
Mm.
such a powerful exercise. It's one of my favorites. And I want you guys to go, opt in and download that exercise. And I would love to also hear from you and let me know how it goes.
Awesome. So go to the link below and grab your ideal model and walk through this artistic exercise. How fun is that? And meditation, so that you can really start to bring all of your parts back into wholeness. I think it's really a powerful thing. So go to the link below and grab that. And also so you can find out about psychosynthesis and all of the amazing things that they're doing at the Psychospiritual Institute. So Val, are you ready for our lightning round?
Okay.
Okay. A, a miracle is.
A miracle is life.
Mm.
Am I answering one word, or am I answering whatever comes?
Whatever comes. You're going to answer, and I'm just going to ask question after. I'm not responding. I'm just going to let you answer each of the questions.
Yeah, a miracle is life, this moment. God, so often we're looking for a miracle or magic or somewhere else, but it's like, this is it, you guys. We're born. We're alive. How are we embodied? How are we having this experience? It's a miracle. It's beautiful. Every moment.
Awesome. Your definition of spirituality.
Spirituality is connecting to something larger than ourselves, and knowing that the way that we get there is by embodying and bringing it through us.
Mm-hmm. People get sick because
they forget who they are.
Yeah. One daily ritual, practice, or thing you cannot live without.
Taking a step outside with my bare feet, grounding in the earth, and taking a moment of sunshine on my face.
Mm-hmm. I love that. One truth that you can leave for all your friends, family, and humanity.
We are each born into this world to fulfill a need. And every single one of us holds a piece of this puzzle of moving our world forward. So trust who you are. Trust that you have something special and unique to offer the world. And don't let any of those parts of you get in the way from you living fully into the world, because we need you. The world needs you. And when we're in service to the world, nothing can stop us.
Awesome. And one thing that you want to do, be, receive, or have that you're super excited about that's coming up in your life.
So the first thing that came was something I shared with you right before we jumped on, which is that I'm in the process of creating a membership program with Psychospiritual Institute as a way of serving. So we run, board certified life coach and leadership trainings now. And I also well, if people don't want to become coaches, I really want to be able to serve you. So I'm so excited. I'm putting my whole heart into this beautiful membership where we can dive in together as emerging leaders and receive soul level nourishment and coaching and practices that create resilience so that we can continue to do the great work in the world. So I'm super psyched about that.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you, Val, today for your magic and miracles and your wisdom. So grateful. And thank you all for joining us for another episode of Quantum Miracles Mastery. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye, guys. Beautiful.